2013 was a different time for gaming. Kickstarter was seen as a savior for indie games with projects like the Ouya game console, Shadowrun Returns, Wasteland 2, Torment Tides of Numenera, and Double Fine Adventure rolling in cash from independent backers. Initially, it was seen as a way of bypassing the system of games that had become associated with developers being shut down, inflated budgets, and really just games that weren't what gamers wanted. One of these projects was Mighty Number 9, and on paper it sounded like a dream for backers. After all, it was to be a spiritual successor to Mega Man, a game that had just had a new game cancelled by Capcom. It racked up $4 million and became a popular topic on message boards with people flinging money at it left and right and speculating that it would be the best thing ever. Over the course of 3 years, however, the game's reputation has not only gone down the toilet before it even came out, but the game was snowballing controversy. Earlier on in development, they hired a community manager who was not only an outspoken feminist and proponent of controversial game critic Anita Sarkeesian, but who also implied that they got the job due to connections and stated that they were not a fan of Mega Man. But despite this, they wanted the main character's gender changed and actually backed the game just so they could say that before taking the job. While she later left the post after a year and a half, that was only the beginning of the controversy with this game. At the same time, Mighty Number 9 was going through a very delayed and rough development process, and as leaked screenshots, videos, and developer builds showed, it wasn't shaping up to be quite what gamers wanted. Despite this, the producer was not only announcing more Kickstarters and grand plans for his game, but he was even announcing stuff like a TV series for the video game. And despite this, the game wasn't even out yet. And perhaps the most recent backlash from this game was due to a poorly made, unfunny trailer that tried too hard to appeal to millennials and that reeked of something an internet collective would make instead of a professional video game company. It was so bad that one of the studios working on the game even criticized it because, well, it was horrible. The line in the trailer about feeling like an anime fan on prom night in particular was not only criticized by the target demographic of Mighty Number 9, but it was also mocked by many epic gamer memes online, along with the fact that the graphics were just so poor in the trailer, with the explosions in particular being compared to pizza. If anything, it ended up becoming the 2010s version of the infamous Daikatana ad that promised that Daikatana was going to make you John Romero's bitch. And perhaps the greatest impact Mighty Number 9 has had before it even came out is that it's made many more gamers spectacle of Kickstarters in general. But now it's time for me to actually play Mighty Number 9 though and find out, is Mighty Number 9 really that bad? Now, Mighty Number 9 is a video game available for numerous game consoles. It's currently out on Windows, the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 3, Xbox One, and the Wii U. It's also coming soon to the Vita and 3DS, and while there are versions for the Xbox 360, Linux, and Mac OS in development, they have been delayed. Now that's a lot of consoles to make a game for, but on the other hand, this might explain some of the issues with it. Now, unlike some early access games and Kickstarter games, the game was in fact finished and released and is now finally available on disc even. You can insert the disc into your console and play it. You can also download the game on Steam or your console's digital store and play it. It's finally out after numerous delays, and in fact, I am playing it right now. The premise of Mighty Number 9 is that Beck, a popular Scientologist musician who made some pretty good albums about how he had 2 turntables and a microphone, is now a robot powered up by Lord Xenu, and some robots are out of control due to a virus and you need to stop them. Yes, it's a plot straight out of Mega Man. The voice acting for the story, however, is mediocre and of a low quality, giving the game the feel of a video game series produced by a YouTube collective with a low budget instead of a professional video game. Like, this is the kind of stuff you'd expect to see from Greenlight and not from a game with $4 million.
Once again, the president has declared a countrywide state of emergency. This based on reports of haywire robots rampaging out of control in all 52 states. I'm being told we have a comment from Gregory Graham, CEO of Cherry Dynamics. Cherry Dyne, of course, being the world's leading robot manufacturer. Let's go there now, live.
Attention! Attention! Is this thing on? Oh. My fellow Americans, in this time of crisis, we at Cherry Dyne would just like to express that this isn't our fault. It's that Dr. Blackwell. He's the one behind this. Blame him! We at Cherry Dyne are doing all we can to help fix the situation. It's Blackwell.
Hello, is this thing on?
Avi?
And now let's go live to our Eye in the Sky Avi for today's Avi News Traffic Report. Thanks, Avi. As you can see, we've got a few accidents eastbound on, well, everywhere!
Mighty number 6? What does he think he's doing? Unless... could he be malfunctioning too?
Sonda, are you alright?
Will, Beck, thank goodness. But where are the other mighty numbers?
Well, based on empirical evidence, I believe they might be suffering from this robot affliction that's going around.
Crikey! It's like every bot in America went completely nuts all at once. Let me contact my brother at the head office in Tokyo. Maybe he can send help.
I'm sorry, Soichiro. Please understand. The Japanese government won't let us intervene until we know the cause of the malfunctions.
I was afraid of that. But it makes sense. After all, any robots you send to help could be affected as well, making things even worse.
Just to confirm, Mr. Sonda, if we can isolate the cause of the robot rampage, you'll send aid?
Absolutely, Professor White. Anything we can do. Did you have a plan in mind?
Yes. We'll send Beck to track down all his fellow mighty numbers.
Great idea! Wait, what?
His assimilation ability should filter any irregularities from his siblings' programming. If we can gather and study multiple samples, perhaps we can isolate the cause of the problem.
It's a long shot, but it's our only hope. The fate of the entire country hangs in the balance. I'll finish reactivating calls so she can provide support. Let's get to it!
The graphics of Mighty Number 9 are simply okay. On one hand, the explosions are laughable, but the rest of the game just looks like a typical cartoon platformer from the PlayStation 3 era. At times, the game does have nice lighting and graphical effects, however. The graphics are far from the best that the Unreal Engine 3 offers, considering how that was the same engine numerous big games last generation ran on. Now, there are numerous theories that speculate on why the graphics look so mediocre. On one hand, it could be platform parity, and it wouldn't shock me knowing that some developers would want the game to look the same across next-gen, the PC, last-gen, and handhelds. On the other hand, others speculate that the Kickstarter budget was mismanaged, considering they got $4 million. One thing that isn't a theory, though, is that the game was slightly downgraded, even from earlier development footage. There are screenshots and videos showing the earlier build with the later one, and there is a slight downgrade. Either way, I simply find it ironic that some Mega Man fans are complaining about graphics, when another Mega Man game that deliberately had poor graphics and was marketed on this fact was praised. However, the art direction in this game is nowhere near as iconic, consistent, or as memorable as Mega Man's is, and it's no doubt made worse by the graphics. But anyways, let's talk about the gameplay now, since I know there is a segment of the gaming population who doesn't care about what the graphics look like and simply want to know if the gameplay is any good. Well, just like the graphics, Mighty Number 9's gameplay is mediocre. Now, Mighty Number 9 is an action platformer. Gameplay involves mashing the shoot button, then pressing the right button on the controller to absorb the enemies and gain powers. It sounds simple on paper until you realize that the game got its level design inspiration from games such as I Wanna Be the Guy, as in you'll spend more time being killed by the levels than by the enemies. This means that gameplay relies on memorizing the levels, where enemies are at, and where the death traps are at that lead you to an instant cheap death, and you will die all the time from these instant cheap deaths. This wouldn't have been as much of a problem if you could respawn in a similar area or if the game lacked lives, but the developers haven't gotten the memo that the 80s and 90s were long over and that lives simply add frustration, especially in games with badly designed levels where you're more likely to get killed by touching something than by an enemy. To make matters worse, when you run out of lives, you have to start the whole level all over again. I'd recommend going into the settings and changing the amount of lives to as many as possible. However, the only way to really get unlimited lives on the PC version is to find a trainer or run Cheat Engine, and I don't think there's a way to do that on consoles. Dashing using the right bumper is frustrating as well and utterly pointless, as it serves to just drive you nuts, like how the QuickTime events in Hedgehog Engine Sonic games exist for no reason other than to slow you down. You have to hit the right bumper just right to dash through corners, and if you don't, you just lost another life. And collision detection is wonky as well, and usually your character won't grab onto ledges or dash through these corners. At one point, by holding left on the analog stick, I made my character get stuck on geometry. While enemies can shoot diagonally, you can only shoot forward. Boss fights in the game are all the same. Two doors close and you have to fight the boss's repetitive attacks, doing the same thing over and over again until the boss dies. While bosses in many 2D games or games inspired by them will change up attacks, the more damage they take, in this game they don't. Even the final boss in Mighty No. 9 is like this. The game releases with a Day 1 DLC pack that locks away a character and their storyline with new gameplay until you spend $5. That's right, the game charges money for Day 1 DLC for an already mediocre game with the whole character locked away. Now if you purchase the retail version for $10 more, you get the DLC included with the game along with an art book and poster. Now, let's end the review by talking about the optimization. On my PC with a R9 380, i7 2600, and 16 gigs of RAM, it ran at about 60 frames per second with some micro stutter here and there, which I kind of expect from PC ports now, and some hitching, especially when dashing. On the other hand, I know that many gamers and the target audience for games like this likely don't have nice computers, so I decided to whip out some laptops to test the game out on. The first laptop is a Lenovo ThinkPad W520 with a quad-core Sandy Bridge i7, 13 gigs of RAM, and a NVIDIA Quadro 1000 GPU, similar to that of a 400 series GeForce GPU. It's not the most advanced GPU, but it should run a game as simple as Mighty No. 9. On the default settings, that ran fine on my R9 380 for the most part. The game has some frame rate issues, not hitting 60 frames per second at all, instead feeling somewhere between 40 and 60 frames per second. Now it's time to run the game on a weaker laptop, which is an HP 2760p. It has a dual-core Sandy Bridge i7, 4 gigs of RAM, and Intel integrated graphics. This GPU is far weaker than that of the dedicated GPU in the W520, but considering how many indie games are, it should at least be playable. However, the first time I launched the game, I was surprised since the game refused to run whatsoever on my Intel GPU, instead giving me an empty window, and closing it from the task manager caused the window to remain. After a reboot, the game simply crashed instead of loading at all. This might be a major issue for many laptop gamers and, well, gamers in general. If the game is crashing for no apparent reason with all the redisks installed, then it means there is something wrong with the game's coding and its ability to handle different machines. This might mean it could have issues on someone's Acer laptop from Walmart. The game has pretty high requirements, however, with higher requirements than Crysis for a game that looks like a PlayStation 2 or early PlayStation 3 title. After all, it can run on the PS3, and while many 360 and PS3 ports simply require an 8800 GT, this game suggests a newer DirectX 11 GPU despite being a DirectX 9 game. The PC isn't the only platform with some performance issues, however, as the Wii U version is considered unplayable by many. The Xbox 360 version has also been delayed due to a bug found during certification by Microsoft. All in all, my number 9 is only worth buying if you've played tons of other indie platformers on Steam and are looking for yet another generic one. On one hand, it's a $20 game, while the retail version is $30. On the other hand, it's an iffy buy still at that price. It brings nothing new to the table, especially when other developers are cloning Mega Man in an attempt to fill the void left by Capcom and are doing a better job at it. Only buy this game on sale if you're desperate for more indie platformers, because otherwise this game is a waste of money. Even if you ignore the whole Kickstarter controversy, it simply is just another indie platformer, except with tons of hype attached to it and a $4 million production cost. Also, it wouldn't shock me if this game eventually became a PlayStation Plus or Games with Gold title, and that's all that needs to be said. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more.
Return to the title screen. End the game. Initializing power down sequence. Bye for now.